Chapter 11, Sunday, July 16th. Luke awoke with blond hair in his face. He tried to sit up and couldn't budge an inch. Man overboard, murmured a voice beside him very close. JJ. Luke started to climb and then complain and then remembered the captain. He shut his eyes tightly and shook his head, but the awful image wouldn't go away. The 6'5" cascaded, disappearing into the foam. When Radford finally ordered them to bed, the lower bunks were under water. They were sharing the uppers, packed like sardines, two to a berth, strapped in with lee canvases. Luke leaned over to unfasten the hook, elbowing JJ awake in the process. I had a nightmare, JJ mumbled. No, you didn't, Luke told him soberly. Will peered out from the bunk he shared with Ian. Is it just me, or is the water getting higher? JJ jumped down with a splash. Feel that? Calm, and look, he pointed outside. The sun's back. The four sloshed out of bed and climbed up the companionway. On deck, crusted sea salt crunched under their feet. In the light of day, the Phoenix was a floating plate of spaghetti. Rope and rigging lay tangled everywhere. The main mast looked like a giant hand had snapped it in two. Equipment most of it smashed, was deposited in clumps all over the deck. The radio antenna was gone, and the bowsprit was cracked and off center. The ship's dinghy, which was usually stowed upside down in the rigging, was now pointed straight up, as if it were a rocket about to be launched at the moon. Ian summed up everyone's feelings when he said, Wow. Lissa and Charla worked one of the pumps trying to clear the water out of the engine room. Mr. Radford manned the other, which was draining the main cabin and gully. All activity ceased when they saw the boys on deck. JJ spoke first. Shouldn't we still be looking for the captain? Radford stood up. If looks could kill, JJ would have been fried to a crisp. To look for the captain, you don't use a boat. You use a submarine. Hey, Luke said angrily. You're talking about a real guy who died. It's not a joke. No, it's not, the mate agreed unpleasantly. Someday, I want to sit down with you and your friend Richie Rich and find out why you needed to play WWF in a full gale. You damn near well got us killed, and you did get one of us killed. Dan Rappaport's words at the Guam airport echoed in JJ's ears. You're going to kill somebody one of these days. Well, don't blame me, Luke exclaimed hotly. I was trying to keep this maniac from raising the sails just to show you he knew how. Not true, said JJ in a hollow tone. I thought I could help. Next time, snarled Radford, help somebody else. Wissa stepped forward. Let's forget about who did what and concentrate how we're going to get out of this. Calmly, the mate went over their situation. According to the GPS, they were 480 miles east-northeast of Guam. Nearest landfall, Guam. No SOS has been sent and the radio was out. Even if the radio could be fixed, the call couldn't travel much more than 15 or 20 miles without an antenna. Their only chance of being spotted depended on the schooner's emergency position indication radio beacon, the EPIRB. This was unlikely to reach other ships, but might be detected by passing airplanes. How many air routes fly over this part of the Pacific? Asked Luke. None, Radford replied. The engine was dead and full of seawater, which pretty much guaranteed that it would never work again. The mainsail was gone, and the staysail and the jibs couldn't be used because of the damage to the bowsprit. That left us just the foresail. It was fine if they could ever get past the thousands of pounds of tangled ropes and fallen rigging. The drinking water tanks were okay, but there was no electricity and no refrigeration. The food stores and medical supplies were at least partly damaged by salt water. Worst of all, the Phoenix wasn't expected in for 3 weeks. That meant no one was going to be looking for them. Are we going to die? Asked Will in a small voice. I won't lie to you, said Radford. We're in big, big trouble. To get through this, we're going to have to work 20 hours days, ration our supplies, and he glared at Luke and JJ. No more crazy stunts. We've lost a man already, and we're all going to have to live with that, if we live. According to the mate, there were three main jobs that needed to be done to ensure their survival. Pumping. Pump like your life depends on it, because it does. Clearing the foresail. If we go anywhere, that's how we'll get there. Lightening the ship. If we can't eat it, wear it, or sail it, we pitch it. That included luggage, books, all pots, pans, dishes except the bare minimum, and the waterlogged mattresses off the lower bunks. The drawers from the built in dressers went over the side next, along with any cartons of spoiled food from the galley. Are you sure we should be doing this? Charla asked nervously. She watched a load of instant mashed potatoes swell up like a swamp creature before sinking out of sight. It can't be good for the environment to just throw garbage in the ocean. Are you kidding? Lissa managed to manufacture a smile as she pumped. These fish never had it so good. They're probably going to ask us for some gravy. Mr. Radford clung to the main mast, chomping at the splintered wood with an axe. Will and Ian worked at the tangle of rigging with hacksaws. It took until noon, but all hands paused to watch the top of the mast and hundreds of pounds of ropes and shredded canvas slide over the side and disappear under the waves. It brought up a half-hearted cheer. Even Mr. Radford added a grunt of approval. Lunch was the Phoenix's entire store of frozen hot dogs, which were thawing out since there was no electricity for freezer. Charla made a face. Any vegetables? The mate pulled out a huge tub of chocolate ice cream and tossed it to her. I can't eat this, she exclaimed. Wait a few hours, grunted Radford. You can drink it. She bit her lip. Without the captain around, that terrible man was becoming meaner and more obnoxious. She felt instantly guilty. Was that all the captain meant to her? An authority figure to keep Radford in line? How selfish was that? While the crew was eating, the mate let himself over the side and down the swim ladder to check the water line on the hull. When he came back, his face was gray. Not enough, he panted. We've got to dump more gear. There's nothing left to dump, JJ protested. Radford looked at him sourly. Don't tempt me, Richie Rich. They removed the boom of the mainsail and slid it into the water. The galley's refrigerator and the backup generator, both ruined, were next. Then the mate's attention fell on the Phoenix's three anchors. One by one, they were cut loose and dropped into the sea. Luke was worried. What if we need one of those to, anchor? If we get that close to land, Archie, Radford promised, I'll jump in and hold the boat personally. Hey, what's the big idea? Demanded JJ from the open cargo hatch. He stepped into the deck, dragging a large, bright yellow suitcase. I had to leave my jet ski in Hawaii, but someone's allowed to bring the world's biggest piece of luggage on board? He fiddled with the catch. Whose is this? Radford's eyes bulged. No! And pow! With a hiss of compressed gas, the suitcase burst open, shooting out to 10 times its original size. JJ was knocked back into the flooded cargo hold, where he landed with a mammoth splash. The thing kept on growing, unfolding at the corners like a flower. By the time JJ's head poked out of the hold, an 8-foot rubber life raft sat on deck, complete with sun canopy, seating for 10, signal flares, first aid kit, and provisions. The roar that came from Radford was barely human. Why is it always you, Richie Rich? JJ was soaked and sulky. You should have told me there was a boat in there. The label said contents. 1 lifeboat. What did you want? A singing telegram? Well, just fold it up again, JJ said defensively. What's the big deal? The big deal is you can't fold it up again, the mate howled. Has to go back to the factory to be recharged. That's stupid. Yes, it is. And it's even stupider to waste our precious space tying this thing down so it doesn't blow out to sea with the next puff of breeze. Will spent the day cringing as he waited for the mate's furious criticism to fall on him. Everyone was getting yelled at. Even little Miss Perfect Lissa, when she delivered the news that their EPRB had conked out. Radford howled at her like she had personally smashed it with a hammer. Maybe Captain Cascaden had thought Lissa could do no wrong, but Radford was an equal opportunity offender. It was tough to be Captain's pet when the captain wasn't around anymore. Instantly, Will felt terrible for his thoughts. A man was dead and gone, and he was almost celebrating the fact that it made things harder for Lissa. If by some miracle the captain turns out to be okay, I'll take out the garbage. I'll give it to charity if I ever get any money. I'll be a better person, I swear. The problem with the EPIRB turned out to be a fixable one. JJ's inflatable lifeboat had its own beacon, which was moved to the navigation room and switched on. You're welcome, JJ gloated. Opening that ref seems like a pretty smart move now, huh? It was the kind of comment that would have guaranteed a screaming broadside from the old Radford. But the mate gave no sign that he'd even heard. Something had changed about him, almost as if there had been an audible click. Later, when Radford went over the side to recheck the water line of the boat, Luke was waiting for him at the swim ladder. How we doing? Do we need to get rid of more stuff? Radford grunted and wouldn't answer. 4 o'clock, when he went to the water in the hall, Lissa went with him to hold the flashlight. It looks worse than ever, she said in concern. Are you sure all that pumping is doing any good? The mate remained sullen and silent. I liked him better when he was yelling at us, was Will's opinion. You know where you stand with a guy who hates you, but one who ignores you? That's scarier. I miss the captain, Ian said simply. Long faces nodded all around. At dinner, the mate wouldn't even eat with him. He took a tin of cold beans and sat atop the main cabin, staring into the sunset, shoveling with a plastic spoon. It was a moonless night, impossible to tell the Phoenix from the vast ocean around her. Luke couldn't see his own sneakers without a flashlight, and the crew walked carefully despite the calm waters. It had taken all day, but the foresail had finally emerged from the mountain of tangled ropes and rigging. I think it's ready, Luke called to Mr. Radford. The mate was still atop the main cabin, flat on his back, now staring at the stars. We're ready to raise the foresail, Luke repeated louder this time. No answer. Ian tried his luck. Excuse me, he ventured. Mr. Ratface? A collective gasp went up the deck. JJ stopped pumping and laughed out loud. The mate sat up suddenly. What? What did you call me? Mr. Ian caught a desperate look from Luke and realized his mistake. The younger boy went pale. Foresail's ready, Luke put in quickly. Want us to raise it? Redford jumped down from the cabin top. Even in the pitch black, they could see his burning eyes glaring at them. But when he finally spoke, his tone was light and easygoing. Tomorrow's another day, he said. Why don't you kids get some sleep? I'll look after things up here. What about pumping? Asked Lissa. Can't save your life if you kill yourself doing it, the mate told her. He paused. You did a lot of good work today in a tough situation. And his face twisted. Proud of you. Will held it in until the four boys were splashing around the cabin. Mr. Ratface, he goffed at Ian. Man, I was expecting him to go berserk on throw you over the board. I thought it was his name, Ian said honestly. Nobody's name is Ratface, Luke exclaimed, hoisting himself into the upper berth and drying his wet feet with a towel. Not even in TV land. Ian flushed. You know how sometimes you hear a word, but you don't think about what it really means? It just sounds to you? Luke patted him on the shoulder. We forgive you, kid. We needed to hear It anyway. Well, it didn't get mad. Well, he didn't get mad, the younger boy added. In fact, I thought he was pretty nice about it. Yeah, right, snickered JJ. Radford? Nice? That's a good one.